Welcome to the Winners Mindset podcast. Sean, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on, my friend. So yeah, no, excited to speak to you. Yeah, so thank you again for having me on.
Thank you very much for being on, Sean. Just before we kick things off, I just want to mention for new viewers watching this, I do have a brief stammer. That's also one of the reasons why I've chosen to do this, is to also come out of my comfort zone and show people in life that whatever they want to do, whatever they want to achieve, don't let things get in the way of that. So thank you very much to Sean for agreeing to do this.
Absolute
So
pleasure.
start off by Sean, just talk to us a bit about your career and yourself for viewers that may not know who you are.
Okay, so I play for Cardiff City at the minute. I've been at Cardiff now for almost 7.5 years. Um, I started off playing local football in Plymouth, where I'm from originally. Played for Plymouth as a schoolboy. Was released at 16, and then made my way up to Swindon Town, where I signed a YTS. Spent a fantastic 3.5 years at Swindon. Um, Made lots of good friends, and it was a great club for me to start at, to be honest. It was a club where I got an opportunity to play at a young age, so had a fantastic time there, and then moved on to Reading from there in the January of 2011. I think I just turned 20, so yeah, I think it was January 2011, and spent another 3.5 years there, which I absolutely loved, and
Yeah.
then made my way to Cardiff at 2014. So yeah, no, I've been here ever since and absolutely loved it. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to have spent the last 8 seasons with Cardiff. Very fortunate to have been at a club like this and to be able to wear the captain's armband. So very privileged. Um, but yeah, hopefully to a few more years at Cardiff because I absolutely love it here. And
Yeah.
we've had our ups and downs. Obviously, this season's not going as great as previous seasons, but um, fingers crossed we can pick it up come the back end of the season.
For sure, for sure. Really good to hear that. So Sean, just to start off, what is your very own definition of a winner's mindset?
Okay, so it's a tough question, really, because I guess everyone has their different views on what a winner's mindset is, and um, my own personal view would be somebody who has a never give up attitude. Somebody who is willing to take defeat and learn lessons from it. Um, and somebody who has self awareness that can, especially in a team sport, I think you need to be very self aware. You have to realize how people are around you, what they're going through, because a lot of what people see is just maybe the 90 minutes that's on the pitch, but a lot more goes into that. So being able to understand people to a better level, um, and yeah, like I said before, you've got to have that determination, that attitude when you're working in training Monday to Friday to try and put as much as you can into it to make sure you're right on a Saturday because like I said, that short little 90 minutes you get in a match, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So there's so many things that go into it. I guess everyone would come up with a different answer, but for me, definitely those few things I mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the outside work off the pitch. People don't see that, the hard work going into the training ground, the gym trainings. What would you say, in your own life, would you say to people to achieve their max potential? So obviously, maybe routines that you've set yourself in your life to help you achieve that.
I think just try and be consistent in whatever you are doing. In any walk of life, really. For me, obviously, football. So um, make sure what I'm putting in my body, whether that be food, hydration, just be as consistent as you can with what you eat, and you find out over the years what's the best things for you. Trial and error really with food. Some things agree with you better and give you better chance of performing on a weekday or a weekend. So definitely nutrition and but like I said, consistency. If you're training Monday to Friday, you can't just turn it on a weekend. You need to really make sure that the work you're putting on the training pitch, tactically, technically, is at the best of your ability. Because if you turn it to a Saturday and you haven't been doing it in the week, you're going to fall short. So I definitely would give any advice to anyone: be consistent and be driven to always try and improve, always be better, because in the end you will reap the results.
What about for those players though that maybe trying to reach that consistency that they really want, but maybe a bit short on confidence and maybe a bit short on motivation because of that? What would you say to those players, and how would you try to get out of that kind of way they're in right now?
Well, there's at a football club, for instance, we've got probably 20 to 25 first team players, and then probably the same amount of lads who are in the under 23s. And all these players aren't extroverts. A lot of them probably be introverts. Not the loudest of characters, quite shy. Um, and some of these players are our best players in our team. But over the years, I guess they have managers or coaches or players they've played with, that you've got to understand. This is what I said before about having that self-awareness of the people around you and how to act, and how to speak to them. Because how I would maybe speak to someone to motivate, or how someone would speak to me to motivate me, wouldn't motivate someone else in the same way. So, and this is the hard job for managers and coaches. They have to be super aware of that, super in sync with their whole squad to understand how to get the best out of players. But yeah, these players, for me, there's lads I've played with who maybe need an arm around them sometimes, or it's just trying to coach people or talk to people in a certain way that gets the best out of them. Because um, football's a tough world. It's a harsh sport that sometimes if you don't perform, it's kind of sink or swim. And lots of players probably don't get the fair opportunities, but the ones that do probably have had good coaches or good people around them to try and get the best out of them. So yeah, I'm glad I'm not a manager or a coach, because I think that's probably the hardest part of their job, is to try and keep a solid squad and keep people on side for the majority of the season.
Sean, you mentioned putting an arm around people when they need it,
Mm,
or maybe as a captain, maybe knowing which players maybe need an arm around them, or maybe which players need like come on, a little kick up
mm.
the backside a bit. As a player yourself, what do you prefer?
Um, it's a hard one, really. I mean, I didn't quite like it when I was younger, when the older pros used to scream and shout at me if I'd done something wrong. I didn't particularly like it, but um, I used to use it. I used to use it as motivation to do better. I used to use it as motivation to work harder or not make that mistake again. And that was one thing I always tried to make sure I did, was if you made one mistake, try not to make the same mistake again. You got to show that you're always trying to learn. But my method now, I'm not really as a captain. I don't really scream and shout. It's not my really the route I'd go down. My forte. I'm more of someone who would try and encourage, um, pull someone to one side, speak to them, and try and better them in that way. I think you get a lot more out of people when you speak to them properly, rather than um, throwing your arms up in the air or screaming and shouting at people. I've always found, in my experience anyway, that you always get the best out of people when you speak to them in the way you probably want to be spoken to. So yeah.
So, Sean, you mentioned there about knowing each player and what to do with each player, and knowing the personalities there, and knowing the characters there. For you, you've been part of promotions, you've been part of a winning team. For you, what makes a winning team tick? The characters in there you need, maybe.
Mm. In the successful dressing rooms I've been in, there's always a great team spirit. Um, Very tight knit group with lots of friendships, and lads who respect each other. I think that's one of the keys. Is you have to have that respect for your teammates. And the few dressing rooms I've been in where we've been successful, we've always had a group of players that would run through brick walls for each other. And when your mate makes a mistake, you know your mate's going to be backing you up to get you out of it.
Yeah.
So I think definitely team spirit. You have to walk onto that pitch because the Cardiff City team that we got promoted with, we weren't the best team in the league. Um, Wolves were definitely the best team in the league that year, and they won the league. But
Yeah.
there was teams that were Fulham were a very good team that year, and they probably had a better squad than us. Or there was probably 4 or 5 teams that had better squads than us. But the one thing that we had is that when we walked onto that pitch, those 11 lads, we were going to run through brick walls for each other, and we were going to make sure that we won that game.
Yeah, for sure. And would you say that kind of led to the Premier League? Because when I was watching your games, you saw maybe you weren't the best team. You didn't really play the tiki taka Pep's team play or that like that.
Mm.
But when you have a manager there like Neil Warnock, he wants your teams to fight on the pitch. He wants you to win the 50-50s. He wants you to win every ball there is. So do you think, from Neil's point of view, do you think that kind of led into the team a bit?
100%, and that was what he wanted us to do from the minute he stepped in the door. He took us from, I think, third bottom the first season, third bottom, and then we ended up finishing maybe 10th. And then the following season, we got promoted, and it was all about building those blocks. And we done, like you said, we didn't play the possession based football. We done all the horrible things in a game very well. We ran hard. We outrun teams. We outworked teams. We defended well. If we needed to kick the ball in the row Z, we would. It was encouraged to do that. We used to throw the ball up the line, work on set pieces. All the little details that he wanted us to do, we just done them better than most of the teams in the league that year, and we were very hard to beat.
It
We think
worked.
we, yeah, it worked, and I think we had the best defensive record that year. I think we had about 18 clean sheets, conceded 36 or 37 goals, and the strikers, we didn't have to rely on having a striker that scored 20 or 30 goals because as a team we just knew when we used to go out there we were going to win 1-0, and if we did concede a goal we'd fancy ourselves to get one or two.
We really, really did that. So now we're going to move on to part two of the podcast, where Sean's going to talk about his unique journey from youth, talk about his highs and lows, times where he maybe found it hard, got released, etc. So Sean, tell me about the call where you got released by Plymouth Argyle.
So went to school that day as normal, and then we had meetings up at home park up at Plymouth Argyle Stadium, and I would have been told a time to go up there. So, say for instance, 7 o'clock. Me and my mum had to go up to the stadium and sit in front of two guys who hadn't been at the club very long. Actually, I'd already been told previous to that I was going to be given a scholarship. So, but I kind of felt that I knew what was coming. And we sat there, me and my mum, and just basically got told, long story short, that we're not going to keep you. We don't believe that you're the right sort of player for the club, who we want to keep. So, yeah, you've been released. And it was one of the hardest things to take ever at the time. 16 years old, done really well that season as well for Plymouth. And to be told at the end of it that they don't think you're good enough, it was really, really hard to take at that age. And I had to go into school the next day, and people were obviously excited and thinking I might have gotten a scholarship to then tell all your friends, your teachers. Well, no, the journey at Plymouth's over. So you didn't really know where to go from there. It was really, really hard. You kind of think that dream of being a professional footballer is over, but luckily enough, Dave Byrne, Budgie, who was a coach at Plymouth. He had moved up to Swindon previously that season to take the under-18s job, and he rang me a few days after I'd been released and said, "Look, if you don't go on trial anywhere else, I'll give you a 2-year YTS at Swindon, and you can sign here, play a few friendly games up until the end of year 11, come up, meet the boys, see the area, and I'll give you a 2-year contract." So I snapped his hands off, to be honest. The opportunity to be guaranteed a 2-year apprenticeship was huge for me. So an opportunity to learn, and I made a really good decision. The club was a fantastic club, and I got on really well the minute I went there. So I was just super excited to go. Really tough decision, because obviously moving away from home makes it twice as hard. But yeah, it was, looking back, the best decision I ever made, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And for you, Sean, it's not just you. There's loads of young players now that are in probably the same position that you were in, have just been released, and maybe going through a hard time like you were. So, is there any advice that you pass for those players now, that may have just been released or maybe in the same position as you were?
The one thing I'd definitely say is don't give up. Don't just because one person has an opinion and believes that you aren't good enough. This is for anything as well, any sport, any walk of life, or any work you do. Just because someone has an opinion, their opinion to them is valid. But if you have belief in yourself, because when I got told I wasn't good enough for Plymouth, I still believed I was, um, even though it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was extremely hard to take. At that age, you don't really have that much disappointment when you're growing up in terms of being told you're not good enough for something. So that was real hard to take. But I always believed I was good enough. And the one bit of advice I'd give is just to just keep pursuing your dreams, keep working hard. And like I previously said, if you're just consistent in trying to achieve your dreams, and if that's by training hard, working hard, doing all the little things that you don't think are that important, doing them consistently well all the time, they all add up. And I'm a firm believer of what you put in is what you get out. So the more work you put in, and the more driven you stay,
Yeah.
I'm adamant people will be successful with in whatever they want to do.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned there believing in yourself, trust in yourself. You've said there you thought you were good enough, which is true because now look at you now, look at the journey that you've been on now, so that's really good. So now we're going to move on to the last part of the podcast where we're going to talk about your promotion and relegation. We're going to talk about Neil Warnock, and then we're going to go in a bit about yourself and the responsibilities that you held during that Premier League campaign, and a bit about last year with Mick McCarthy leaving and being appointed. So let's start off by asking you. So obviously you're winning loads of games in the Championship near come the end of the season. You look like you're going to be promoted to the Premier League. During that time phase, how do you handle the pressure of the fans and the media? Do you think?
This is one thing that Neil Warnock was fantastic at. He's the only manager that I've ever played under that's been so good at this, and he just used to be able to take away all the pressure that we were feeling as a squad, all the pressure we were feeling as players. He just kind of absorbed it all onto himself. We never felt in training, before games, after games, when we'd maybe get a bad result and it looked like we might have slipped up here a little bit. You never felt that with him, because he was just, like I said, consistent with however he was through the whole year, win, lose, or draw. He was very consistent. He used to take all the pressure off the media. If anything went wrong, it was all his fault. He always backed up the lads, the squad. He always had our backs. And which is one of the reasons why everyone loved him so much, because he treated everyone as equals. Um, And there was, when I look back on that season, I literally, there was no way we weren't going to get promoted just because of how our squad was and how we were set up to play games. And with a manager like him at the helm, like I said, he just used to absorb that pressure, and you never really felt it until
Yeah.
the last couple of games. It started getting a little bit etchy, and I remember we lost to Derby midweek. It was the third to last game. We lost, and we still had Hull away and Reading at home, and I think we were maybe joint points with Fulham or 1 point ahead of Fulham. So it was getting to that point where, and Fulham were on like a 27 game unbeaten run. So we were looking at those games thinking we have to win both of these games
Yeah.
if we're going to get promoted. Like, we have to. And I remember before the Hull away game, it was the quietest dressing room I've ever been in my life. It was literally, but wasn't worried about it. It wasn't like a nervous energy or
Mm.
anything like that. Everyone was just sat there before the game. No, anyone's barely said a word. But you just look around and you catch eyes with your mate sat across you or the lad you're playing next to, and it was just like, right, we're going to work. This is business. We are gonna. When I walked out that tunnel at the whole stadium, I just knew we were going to win that day, and I think everyone did. We spoke about it afterwards at the promotion party, and still now I speak to one of my close friends, Lee Peltier, the right back, who was one of my closest friends, played with for years. We laugh about it now because no one said a word, but it was
Yeah.
just full focus on the job in hand. Everyone knew what they had to do, plan into place. We are going to win this game and take it to the last game of the season. Fortunately enough for us, a draw was enough against Reading because Birmingham had beat Fulham. So yeah, it was a fantastic season. Lots of highs and lows.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, the pressure we had quite an experienced dressing room that dealt with pressure well and kind of thrived off of it. If you can use that pressure and the nerves, because I still get nervous before every game now, but at my age now, you learn to kind of focus those nerves and the excitement on trying to put it into your performance, make
Yeah.
sure it focuses you and it gives you the base to play well during the game.
Yeah, really good there. And I remember now, so you've just been promoted to the Premier League. You didn't spend a lot of money um, ahead of the season. At the start of the season, what were the targets? Was it obviously to avoid relegation, or what was the targets beyond that?
I think that was the main goal. The main goal was, look, to just, if we finish fourth bottom, it's a successful season. If we can finish the season and we're guaranteed another year in the Premier League for the club, financially, for the city itself, it brings in so much tourism, everything. It's just a big conveyor belt. If we stay in the Premier League, it's fantastic for Cardiff in general. So um, that was the goal, and when I look back on it, it is such a disappointing feeling to think we were only one win away, 2 points, 2 points from safety, because we started the season so poorly. We had lots of opportunities in games where we drew the first couple games of the season, which we probably should have won. Uh, and then it took us probably 2 or 3 months to find our feet as a squad. Uh, and in the Premier League, there's no time to wait. If you don't start picking up results and winning games early in the season, we're always playing catch up, and we just left ourselves with a little bit too much to do. Um, it's frustrating when I look back on it because that squad, that league, that season, we probably should have stayed up, but we just didn't capitalise enough um, on the games at the beginning of the season where we probably should have picked up 3 or 4 more points, which would have seen us to safety.
Yeah. One game that I remember late on was the Chelsea game, where you're about to win, and the officials, Warnock told the media after the game, the best league in the world, the worst officials. And I remember watching that game, and I was like, "Phew, it was just nuts." Because that game,
Yeah, it was. It was extremely tough to take because even at the time, because it happened so quickly, you don't realise how far offside it was. Um, and it swings the game in Chelsea's favour. And at worst, we draw that game and we take a little bit of momentum. But yeah, they scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game, and it looked like we were going to get 3 points against one of the best teams in the league in the world, and you end up losing the game. So that was a really hard one to take, even though before the game you don't really expect anything from that game because you're playing against some of the best players in the world. When you're 1-0 up with 85, 88 minutes on the clock and the boys are absolutely digging in, and it's absolutely, it was going to be one of the best days of the year, winning against Chelsea, and then literally 5 minutes later you lose 2-1. It really knocked the stuffing out of us, to be honest.
do you
It's
think
hard.
that
It's hard to come
you
back
think
from that
that
after
was the
that.
game that kind of was like that's
It
it?
was. It was. It would definitely had a big effect. It definitely had a big effect because if you win that game, the amount of confidence you take into the next round of fixtures is huge. Uh, but no, I there was games after that where we should have done better. We lost to Fulham away 1-0, which was a big nail in the coffin, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because that game there is the one we looked at and we thought if we win that, we need to win, I think, maybe one of the last 2 games to stay up, and we lost it. So we lost to Crystal Palace the day we actually got officially relegated, which was the second to last game of the season. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was loads of opportunities over the year where we should have picked up points where we were maybe tactically and not set up properly, or we just didn't take our opportunities, or we didn't defend well enough. So look, an incredible experience. Very blessed to have played the amount of games I have in the Premier League. So I just wish one year I would have been able to stay up, but there's still a few years left in me. So hopefully I can get back there and put it right.
Let's do it again. um, when you got relegated as a captain, did you find us? Did you find out more about the players that were in the dressing room, like the type of characters? Maybe turn away from it. Okay, I've just been relegated. Maybe I'm not going to be at the club next year, and they start turning away. Or the players that go, okay, I've just been relegated. Now I want to get back up again.
Yeah, it's always the same dressing rooms. You have so many different characters and people, and a good bulk of that squad were desperate to right. Let's put this right. Let's start the season off. It's going to be hard. We've just been relegated, but let's get that feeling back of 18 months ago where we come second in the championship and we got promoted, and it was the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
You have the off season when you have your time off, you have your holidays with your family, and you're enjoying that promotion. It's just brilliant. So a lot of the squad wanted to stay and wanted to try and build the squad back up again and get another promotion straight from being relegated. So, but then you get other lads that potentially might have done really well in the Premier League and are looking to maybe get a move clubs, try and get a contract at a different club. Because once you get that taste of the Premier League, the football, the world around it, it's crazy. Once you're in it, it's phenomenal. I mean, the coverage, it gets watched pretty much in every country in the world. It's insane. So a lot of the lads obviously wanted to stay in the Premier League. A few of them moved on. Lads we had on loan went back to their clubs, but we managed to keep a good amount of the boys that stayed. And just unfortunately, it didn't. The season didn't start too well. We had a bit of a slow start, which was disappointing because you get relegated from the Premier League and you want to have a good start to the season and really kick your season off, get it going, and like I said, try and get a back-to-back to promotion. Yeah.
So let's now fast forward to last year. Harris gets the sack. Mick McCarthy comes in, caretaker role, wins a few games. Seems like form is going up, confidence is high. It gets a 2 year extension, and then it just seemed like at the start of this year, form started to drop a tiny bit. Results maybe weren't going your way. What do you think happened there? Was it hard to adapt to the position of caretaker and a full-time manager?
It's a hard one to see with Mick, because look, he was another very very good manager, very good man who I have a lot of time for, a lot of respect for. He was very good to me while he was here. Um, we the initially the manager bounce that you sometimes get when a new manager comes in lifts spirits, and that lasted for about 10 games, and we were flying. I think we were unbeaten in maybe 10 or 11 games, and we finished the season extremely strong. And then obviously come the beginning of this season, COVID's had its effect on the business of football itself, being able to recruit players, being able to bring the players you want in. So I think not only Cardiff, every club's been struggling with that, and I think that's shown this year with us. We have struggled this season, and unfortunately Mick lost his job, which is always disappointing because it always falls on the players. Managers don't lose their jobs when players are performing well, so. That's our responsibility as a team. We let him down by not putting in the performances, not getting the results we needed. Always hard to put your finger on what was going wrong. Like I said earlier in the podcast, that our season's not been going very well this year, but we've got enough experience in the squad, I hope, to really turn it round and start putting some results together.
Yeah, for sure. Now we're going to go into some quick fire questions. These are from the public. These are from my mate, myself, and these are from myself too. So start off by asking the first one. What was the most hostile the atmosphere you've played under?
Most hostile environment I've played under. Um, there's lots of hostile places. When we go to Swansea, it's quite hostile.
Swansea.
Yeah,
I
I'll
knew
tell
you were
you.
going to say that.
It's very hostile when we go there, but I do love the derby games. They're
Really?
incredible to be part of. So, when Swansea come to our place, they get the same treatment. But that's definitely it's a very 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 tense and atmosphere for sure.
Yeah. Who is the best player you've played with?
Played with. I've played with some good players, but I'm gonna say this guy is streets ahead of anyone I've ever played with, and his name was Peter Whittingham. Unfortunately, obviously passed away a couple of years, well, last year. But what a footballer! Incredible talent. His left foot was. Tell you what, if you haven't seen much of Peter Whittingham, get yourself on YouTube
I
after
will
and just
do it
watch
after this.
watch some of his free kicks. Jesus, he was incredible.
Brilliant, brilliant. Who is the best player you've come up against?
Oof.
There's
Uh,
some good ones in there.
yeah, do you know? I'd probably say Eden Hazard.
Oh,
Yeah, the year we were in the Premier League with Cardiff, what
yes.
he did to us the first game away at Stamford Bridge was ridiculous. He was just, you couldn't get near him, to be honest. Our best players, our most mobile players, he was just walking past people like it was he played football like he was playing in the like the playground basically at school.
That's
He was incredible. But there's I could name you 10 or 15 players, 20 players. I've been fortunate enough to play against some of the world's best, but he is right up there. Yeah.
Who is the best manager you played under?
I'd have to go with Neil Warnock. Obviously, we had our success, but just the man he is, just the way, like I said before, the way he treats people, not just the players. This is the way he treats the chefs, the fitness coaches, the girls that make the food on match days. Everyone from the cleaner to the CEO of Cardiff City, he treated everyone exactly the same. He was just an incredible guy. Very, very lucky to have played under him for a few seasons, definitely.
Brilliant. This one will be a good one. Ronaldo or Messi?
Oof, it's an impossible question, isn't it?
You got to
I mean,
answer
look,
this one.
I honestly can't. I have this debate with my friends because half of them are Team Messi, half of them are Team Ronaldo. They're both. I think Messi's probably the most blessed naturally.
Oh yeah,
He's incredible, and what he's done is absolutely amazing. And he is a player of the generation. He's incredible, but Ronaldo has literally turned himself into a man-made machine, and the numbers he puts up, goals, is ridiculous. So I love Ronaldo probably more. For me, I like Ronaldo more because I look at him and just think that all the work and effort he's put into
yeah,
himself to get to that point. Because if he didn't put all that work and effort in, he would have just been a great player. And all the work and all the hours he's put in, he's turned
yeah,
himself into one of the greatest footballers of all time. So
for
for
sure.
me, I would choose Ronaldo, but
Yeah,
Messi is incredible.
ridiculous too. Absolutely ridiculous. Um, for you, hard work or talent?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think you have to you have to try and harness your talent. Not some players who can be the most talented people in the world in whatever they are. If you don't work at it, if you don't try and become better or challenge yourself, you're never going to maximize your full potential. And the greatest players in the world, like Ronaldo, like Messi, these players have an extreme amount of talent, but they've worked at it every day for their whole lives. And the
Yeah,
outcome is what we all get to witness and what we all get to watch. But I definitely think it's a mixture of both. I think you need to try and harness your talent. You have to try and work out what your talents are and really work on them. Love working on them. Love working hard. Enjoy the hard work because it's going to hurt at the time, but you'll reap the rewards come the future.
yeah. Best advice you've been given?
Um, Best advice, probably just believe in myself. Just when things aren't going well, if I've had a bad game, if I'm not been training very well, not down to any lack of effort, it's just one of those weeks or one of those days where things have gone wrong, is to just sit back, reassess, watch my clips, speak with the analysts, speak with the coaches, and just try and focus on where I went wrong and try and work on how I'll make sure not to do that again or
Sure.
to try and rectify my mistakes. So uh, just believe in myself. Always believe that I'm here for a reason. I'm in the team for a reason. I'm captain of this football club for a reason. Um, because it's not always hunky dory. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be times where things aren't going well. So just always have that belief in myself that the process will take care of itself if I keep being consistent. If I keep doing things in the right way, on and off the pitch, when I'm at home, rest and recovery, all those things. If I keep doing the right things, I'll get the benefits of it come the end.
For sure. Last one. Three words that a person that wants to win his mindset must have.
So work ethic, self awareness,
Mm,
and empathy. I think, yeah, I think you've always got to empathise with, especially in a team sport. Uh, Having that understanding of how people are, like I spoke about before, understanding people's personalities, what makes them tick, and how to harness the best out of them and yourself. So those three things.
yeah, for sure. Um, that is the end off now. So, firstly, I want to thank Sean for being on the podcast. How did you find it, Sean?
It was amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem there. Great to hear. So, if you like the podcast, share it with your family, friends, and I hope to see you for the episode 3 soon. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you.